Good morning, everyone. Today's Tuesday, May the 8th, and this is an update on my garden. Over here you can see our mint plants are going exceptionally well. We got a little bit of rain last night, and these guys have all shot up. It's time to cut some of this back. They're about 1.5 feet tall. This row that once had all of our herbs in it has brought forth these green guys, which are actually zinnias. These are cutting zinnias that I got from digging it last year, planted on the north side of the house, harvested seeds from them, planted the seeds, and this is what came up. These are cutting zinnias, so every time we cut these blossoms off, 2 more blossoms will form off of it, and this will just turn into an area of lots of flowers, and part of my larger design to incorporate more color into the garden and not just make it purely for fruit production or vegetable production. My second row of carrots has shot up again. They're doing really well. These guys are probably about a month and a half off from being ready, many of which I'm going to let actually go to seed so that I can get seeds for this fall's planting as well. Over here are the other root crops. These are Detroit red beets, these purple leaves, which many people don't know this, but the leaves of beets, carrots, root crops, and whatnot can all be eaten. They actually have a pretty good texture to them. When they get larger, they tend to be a bit fibrous, but you can saute them or boil them down, and they make for some really nice complements to your meals. This large plant is a golden beet, and it tastes like a regular beet, except the flesh on it, it's kind of yellow, yellowish golden colored, like a butternut squash is what it reminds me of. But we're going to let this one go to seed as well. So I'll have more to plant this fall. Moving over here, you can see our broccoli plants. They look like they're getting decimated by bugs, which they are, and that's totally okay. These things are done giving off their fruit for the spring. They've also gone to flower and produce seed. That's what these little seed pods are here. I've got thousands upon thousands of these hanging up in the garage drying so that we will have seed stock for this fall. And here in the next couple of days I'll actually cut down all these broccoli plants, and we'll save the stalks for making soups, and the rest of the plant matter will actually go right back into the soil to be part of the soil ecology and give back to the garden. This row down here, I had planted a lot of Yubari king melons, which are a Japanese cantaloupe. They haven't done super well. Looks like we have something coming up here that's either the cantaloupes or it's lemon cucumbers. We'll see, but I'm going to be putting some more seed down once I cut the broccoli. Another thing that we have growing here, these plants, which their leaves look a lot like beans, these are actually morning glories, and I learned kind of by circumstance that these are vining plants or vining flowers, but these are planted at the front, middle, and back of every row in the garden, and they produce these really beautiful purple flowers. I'll show you them shortly. And again, part of the goal is to incorporate more color and visual aesthetics into the garden along with the vegetable production. Part of that visual aesthetics, if you can see here, this is one of the first trellises I built by harvesting bamboo. Let me take a step back. I harvested bamboo from the back of St. Peter's Church. I got the idea for the design. I was looking for a way to be able to both have trellis and be able to use the aisles in the garden. So I did these 3 overlapping triangles, which make equilateral triangles across the top, you can see here, and it makes for a very rigid structure that I can trellis all of the melons and cucumbers up and over, and should it get too hot this year, I can also put shade cloth over that or even integrate irrigation into it. But one of the things you might notice if you stand facing the church on the other side is that you can see where I got my design inspiration. That's the steeple of St. Peter's Episcopal Church, and if you one of these actually lines up with it, but I also wanted to keep it in the pattern of 3 with the house. The Craftsman bungalow design, if you look at my house, there are patterns of 3 and everything, and I've tried to follow true to that with the garden. This row here, I'm excited. These are dragon egg cucumbers, and you can see these things are giving off they're producing really beautiful fruit this year. These are 2 of the 3. I picked one yesterday and ate it, and it was pure magic. I am so excited to have an abundance of these guys giving off, and as soon as I can get them to trellis up onto this bamboo structure, we should have a lot more fruit production. Back here, this mess of plant is actually cilantro, which has gone to seed and is flowering a second time as well. You see these little seed pods on here. That is coriander seed. So cilantro actually, when it goes to seed, becomes the herb coriander. Many of you probably have this in your kitchen somewhere, but I will top these plants off about 6 inches above the base. I'll dry them out, and we'll harvest these seeds here soon, and then the cilantro should start giving off again. One of the things, or a couple of things that people don't know about cilantro is their flowers attract ladybugs. So they are good to have in your garden, and they help keep the aphids down by providing the things that ladybugs like and the conditions for ladybugs to grow and reproduce. So it's good to have cilantro here, and it's also a fantastic antioxidant. So you can actually, we blend it up and we'll add it to our smoothies in the morning to help balance out some of the flavors. This row here, these are Market More 76 cucumbers. They're your typical grocery store variety. They look just like normal cucumbers. Here's a little one right here, little spikes on it. And then back this way, this is one of those morning glory flowers I was telling you guys about. These things are absolutely beautiful, and I also learned from one of my neighbors that in Thailand they eat these flowers. So I'm going to look into this some more, but we have some other edible flowers growing in the garden, and it's my understanding that these are as well. So these are great, and I'm excited to see these things trellis. They're very prolific growers, and they have been climbing up all the bamboo in the rest of the garden exceptionally well. So we should have a lot of color and a lot of blossoms here in the next couple of weeks. Moving on to this row, doesn't seem like a whole lot here. I had planted eggplants and jalapeno peppers, orange bell peppers, and they didn't take. So I'm going to put some more seeds down here. What I do have is this little guy, which looks like nothing, but one of my neighbors brought me a white habanero pepper plant. And that's what this guy is. It is doing fantastic, and the pepper plants are funny. They start off growing really slow, and then suddenly they shoot up, and that should happen here in the next week or two, and then we should have some insanely hot peppers this summer. This little plant here at the front of the row is called a nasturtium. These are planted in alternating colors of red and white at the front and back of every row of the garden. Nasturtium produces another edible flower, and I have some growing that have already flowered further east of here. But it is a very unique flower in that they garnish salads with it, and it's got a sweet flavor that turns spicy and then sweet again. And that's really the only way I can explain to you what it tastes like without actually giving you one. And they're very neat. These produce an odor that repels bad insects, and it attracts pollinating insects. So these are fantastic companion plants for your garden for that purpose, on top of producing a very unique addition to your salads and whatnot by producing these beautiful flowers that are edible. Moving on to this row, I don't know if you guys remember last year, but I had okra growing on here, and I had one lemon cucumber plant. I have okra, both red and white varieties of okra going. I have a couple of jalapeno plants that are down in here. Here's one actually, and you can see it's getting its first flowers, which means we'll be producing fruit here soon. These vines are actually remnants of lemon cucumbers. I guess I left some cucumbers in the ground when I tilled the soil and prepared it this spring, and the seeds took, and we're going to have a lot of lemon cucumbers again this year. So that should be fun, but it's all doing well, and unlike last year, it hasn't quite gotten over 100 yet, so everything in the garden is doing nice. This next row is the start of one of my favorite structures that I've built in this garden. I wanted to create a way to both to keep motion and utilize vertical space here, and so I've been again, harvesting all bamboo to produce all of this. And then I ran these stringers up so I could trellis the beans. We have Kentucky pole beans and scarlet runner beans growing here, and the goal is to get them to grow up about 8 feet and then over these 2 rows of the garden to provide them some shade in the summer. And they have done exceptionally well. The green beans have really taken to this setup, and it still allows everything to blow in the wind. It can handle the storms and the ridiculous weather that we've been getting without any problem. And then as this dries, the structure actually, because I use green bamboo, the structure becomes more rigid as it dries and cures in the sun. And the way it's designed, it actually, even if the wood shrinks, the heavier it gets, the tighter the holds get. So it actually gets stronger the smaller the wood, the smaller the bamboo gets. You can see here, these are, back to the plants, these are the Kentucky pole bean blossoms. These are scarlet runner beans, and they produce these delicious little green beans. We've been picking these over the last 2 days because they just give off a ton, and they're just getting started. But we sauteed them in some butter, some cinnamon, some brown sugar, and then added a little bit of feta cheese afterwards, and it turned into a really nice dish that we served up with some local steaks. Also in here, back to the plants, these are squash blossoms, and these are potatoes. Now, I read somewhere that potatoes make green beans taste better, and I think so far they're doing a good job. And then the squash blossoms are here, not because I planted them, but because I had some seeds left in the ground from last season that sprouted. And so that's kind of why this whole section, which used to be tomatoes and cucumbers, is now potatoes, corn, and squash. And as you can see through here, we have a ton. We have 3 rows of different types of winter squash. We're growing butternut squash, acorn squash, and spaghetti squash. This was our first spaghetti squash. This came from a plant that a squash that we bought at Patina Green last fall. Harvested the seeds out of it, dried them, and I planted them, and they grew. And as you can see here, they're doing well. This thing probably weighs, I would say, about 3 or 4 pounds already. And we have a ton of these giving off. And then in here as well, we've got corn growing. These are all again, organic and heirloom vegetables. The corn produces nitrogen, or maybe it's a nitrogen eating plant, and the squash produces nitrogen at the roots, so they feed off of each other and provide each other nutrients and give these big beautiful blossoms that turn into big beautiful vegetables. And this is kind of a backup view of this whole structure. And again, the idea behind it is to, again, follow the patterns of 3 along with the house, but also to provide a lot of functionality. So the plants will all climb up and over these, and if it does get too hot this year, I have the infrastructure in place to add shade over the top so that we can continue to produce vegetables despite the looming threat of high temperatures again this summer. Over here, it's an acorn squash that is that's growing right here. I'm excited. This is our first year to have acorn squash. Our plants produced vegetation but did not bear fruit last year, so a lot of this stuff I'm actually seeing and growing for the first time. You can see here the bumblebees are having a blast in these plants. They are covered in pollen, and I find it very interesting to observe these guys. It almost looks like they're having fun down inside that squash blossom, and they're really nice bees. They just they like to come here and pollinate all of our plants, and everything is balanced and symbiotic here. Over further east, I have more zinnias coming up out of this corner of the garden. These are in crayon colors, rainbow colors, and something else, but these again are all cutting zinnias. So as they blossom, we'll keep cutting them, and we will have more and more flowers, and then by the end of the summer, this should just be 4 feet of beautiful foliage to look at. Over in this row, we have our stringers for our tomatoes. These first 2 rows of tomatoes here are cherry tomatoes. We have like 4 different varieties: black cherry, pink ponderosa, yellow pear, and one other that I cannot remember. And then we have 2 rows of our larger varieties of tomatoes: Brandywine, Black Krim, Cherokee Black tomatoes. And then throughout, we have Morning Glories planted all in here. And as you can see, these are very, very fast growers. And these guys will start giving off flower here soon. And then we just trellis these things around the bamboo. And once we kind of give them an idea of where they need to go, they take it from there, and then this thing will just be have a whole bunch of beautiful purple flowers on it, and tomatoes, lots and lots of tomato plants. And real quick, I want to show you guys what a nasturtium flower looks like. Here's one right here, and they're so red they tend to oversaturate the sensor on my camera, so they're hard to get a good picture of. But oddly enough, you just pull this little thing off, this little flower off, and you can eat it, and it tastes really cool. So if you ever get your hands on some nasturtium seeds, I recommend planting them. They're very unique, they're fun to look at, and they're fun to eat. Looking back at our cherry tomatoes here, you see we've got our first little tomato blossoms, and I'm excited because we had giant tomato plants last year, and we did not get one single tomato. So this is my first year to actually have heirloom tomatoes growing, and I hope they actually give off. If you see here on the ground all these black dots, those are actually mulberries. There was purpose in doing this, but I planted my tomatoes under a mulberry tree because farmers used to do that back in the day to basically bribe the birds with something to eat so they won't eat your fruits. And I'm hoping that works here. It's also providing some shade during the day when the sun is the hottest in the sky, or the highest in the sky. And I'm hoping that maybe these mulberries that are falling in the garden around here might actually sweeten some of the vegetables too, because they taste delicious and they are abundant, very abundant. Coming here to the end of the garden, you can see my row of cilantro. It's all gone to seed. It's about ready to get cut. I'll be doing that here in the next day or two. Those little seed pods, and then hopefully this will get back to producing the cilantro that you're more familiar with, that's edible. Down here we have this is a morning glory plant growing on the ground. I've got to find some trellis for it, but I planted a number of different things in here. I planted some kale, some spinach. You can see our Swiss chards are all doing really well. These are all transplants, and we come out here about once a week, maybe twice a week, and cut lettuce out of here to make our salads for dinner. This is oregano that we have growing. We got some curry here. The cilantro is doing, the chamomile is doing fantastic. That is a really neat garnish for salads too. Something I'd recommend you try. It's not just for tea anymore. And then over here, we have peppermint coming out of our ears. We have so much of this, so I've got to figure out how to extract peppermint essential oil, because this stuff is a natural mosquito repellent. So you can actually just take a piece of it and rub it on your skin, and it'll help you from getting as many bug bites. And it is also really good if you're a cigar smoker, because you can break off a piece of it and chew on it, and it will take any flavor out of your mouth in a matter of seconds. Over this way, these are our fruit trees. We have a little blueberry bush, little baby blueberries on it. These things got decimated last year, which I have learned is what blueberry bushes do their first year, is just look like crap, but they are coming back this year. We're giving them plenty of water, and we have some fruit, and eventually we'll turn this blueberry bush and that blueberry bush into a hedge along this entire row to provide a natural border for our yard. And right here, this is the last thing I'm going to show you guys. I'm kind of excited about, but this thing is a clone of the rose bush I grew in the front yard, and it had its first blossom last week, which was very pretty. It was pink. I'd imagine it's going to turn redder as it grows, but this thing is doing very well, and I'm looking forward to exploring plant propagation by virtue of cloning more as this garden grows, because this is an easy way to increase the amount of plants that you have without having to go through all the rigors of planting or starting seeds. So anyhow, that's the garden update for now. Stay tuned for another update, and we'll see you later.